The war in Ukraine has been going on for over 2.5 years. During this period, whole arsenals of weapons have clashed on the battlefield, the Soviet-era relics clinging to their final purpose, the cutting-edge Western tech designed to shape the future of warfare, the Russian innovations claimed to be unstoppable, the Ukrainian domestic creations forged in the fires of necessity. Each weapon, old and new, tells a story of survival, adaptation, and the relentless march toward an uncertain outcome. But which of these weapons are leading the way toward victory, and which are being outpaced by the relentless evolution of modern warfare? Join us as we dive into the best and the worst weapons of the Ukrainian war. Prior to the war in Ukraine, Russia was believed to be the second most powerful military force in the world, behind only the US. But mere months of combat shattered this perception. The rapid and brutal realities of modern warfare exposed Russian weaknesses and revealed that the once feared military was nothing but a paper tiger. That's why it shouldn't be surprising that only one Russian weapon has made it onto the winning side: the glide bombs. According to many experts, it's the glide bombs that helped Russia achieve victory in the bloody Battle of Avdiivka after virtually wiping out Ukrainian positions and forcing the country's troops to retreat. So what are these glide bombs that have temporarily turned the tide in Russia's favor? To put it bluntly, glide bombs land somewhere between a missile and a traditional bomb on the ordnance chart. It's an armored shell that carries a warhead, but instead of dropping down and following a roughly parabolic flight path, glide bombs are made more aerodynamic to effectively sail across the sky, giving them a much higher effective range. Modern glide bombs are the most effective aerial weapons Russia has used against Ukraine, and that says a lot. These devices are cheap to make but highly destructive. A single glide bomb can weigh up to 3 tons, fly up to around 40 miles, and unleash such devastating force that it flattens multi-story buildings or obliterates reinforced bunkers. Now, glide bombs are in no way a new addition to the Russian arsenal. In fact, the original glide bomb was rolled out in 1954 under the official name Fab 500 M54. The FAB acronym translates to a high-explosive aviation bomb, while the number 500 indicates its weight, 500 kilograms, which is equivalent to about 1,100 pounds. The next model of this bomb, the low-drag M62, could be carried by Soviet bombers in their external hardpoint carriage. However, the early models of these bombs were rather primitive by today's standards. Why? Because they're also called dumb bombs. Dumb bombs are unpowered and unguided, relying solely on gravity to reach their targets. They were designed to be dropped directly from aircraft, with the accuracy dependent on the bomber's alignment and release point. But for the war in Ukraine, these bombs became a whole lot smarter. That's because the glide bombs now come with a guidance kit strapped to them, like backpacks. These kits, known as Universal Plan and Correction Models, or UMPK for short, were initially developed by the Russians with a single goal: convert unguided Soviet bombs into precision-guided munitions. And that's precisely what they did. The Russian glide bombs now rely on a GPS tracker to hit their targets, allowing them to strike with pinpoint accuracy. Thanks to 2 pop-up wings on the side, the bomb can glide for miles before hitting the target and exploding. This also means they can be dropped from a safe distance, allowing Russian bombers to not even cross into Ukrainian airspace to unleash hell on its cities. Though glide bombs aren't as precise as guided missiles, their capacity to destroy stationary targets at a fraction of the cost has given Russia quite a strategic edge in the conflict. Interestingly, that's quite the opposite of what Russia's actual missiles managed to achieve in the war. The catastrophic failure of these supposed cutting-edge devices is what lands them on our list of the worst weapons in Ukraine. To understand just how badly these missiles have performed in the conflict, all you need to know is that US intelligence officers assess that up to 60% of precision-guided missiles used to attack Ukraine failed. Some failed to even launch, while others failed to explode upon impact, which is nothing short of embarrassing. But that's not even the worst part. These reports were published by Reuters on March 25, 2022. That's barely a month into the conflict. It's when the invading force should go all out, deploying its most advanced and reliable weaponry. The problem is that that's exactly what Russia did. The country's supposed high-tech weapons didn't live up to expectations. The world was promised high-precision hypersonic missiles that can be used to eliminate military targets, such as parked vehicles, arms depots, command posts, infrastructure targets, and with the error probability of just a few meters, as Russia's former Deputy Prime Minister Yuri Borisov put it. However, what the world actually witnessed was faulty missiles, low kill rates, and a series of embarrassing malfunctions. But which missiles are we even referring to? After all, Borisov talked about several models, including the Bal, Bastion, Iskander, Kalibr, KH-101, and Kinzhal missiles. Well, the truth is that we could have been referring to any of these high-profile models, as each of those used in Ukraine faced its own set of issues. To give you just one mortifying example, let's talk about the failure of the 3M-22 Zircon, Russia's latest scramjet-powered, nuclear-capable hypersonic cruise missile. The Zircon has been heralded as a technological marvel, capable of reaching speeds between Mach 8 and 9 and a range of 930 miles. And yet when the missile was supposed to demonstrate its prowess in the conflict, it fell woefully short of expectations. Reports indicate that on February 7, 2024, during an attack on Kyiv, a Zircon missile was shot down by Ukrainian air defenses. Another 2 of these new hypersonic missiles were fired at Kyiv on March 25 and also successfully intercepted by the Ukrainians. So much for its hyped invincibility. The next weapon on our list is one that did manage to live up to expectations and has actually been used to shoot down Russian missiles. We're of course talking about the Patriot missile system, which is undoubtedly one of the weapons winning the war for Ukraine. When the US-made system arrived in Ukraine in April 2023, the former Ukrainian Minister of Defense, Alexei Reznikov, tweeted, "Today our beautiful Ukrainian sky becomes more secure." And that's precisely what this weapon managed to achieve. Russia's supersonic cruise missiles touted as invincible, the prized A-50 spy plane crucial for the country's early warning, command and control during air operations, the coveted Su-34 supersonic bomber claimed to have revolutionized modern aviation. These are just some of Russia's highly advanced weapons that fell victim to the Patriot MIM-104 surface-to-air missile system. Best of all, this system shot down Russian aircraft flying as far as 100 miles away and intercepted missiles as far as 130 miles away, significantly altering the balance of power in the Ukraine airspace. The measly air superiority Russia barely achieved was now almost fully eroded. So what is it about the Patriot system that makes it such a game-changer? This air defense system, considered to be one of the most sophisticated in the world, integrates a powerful radar array with high-speed interceptors, enabling it to detect, track, and neutralize incoming threats with unparalleled accuracy. Throw the exceptional range of over 100 miles into the mix, and you get a formidable shield that's rendered many of Russia's advanced aerial threats less effective and significantly diminished their operational reach. But the Patriot system isn't the only reason behind Russia's failure to establish and maintain full-on air superiority. The performance of the country's supposed cutting-edge aircraft also didn't do it any favors. That's why the Su-34 fighter bomber, a jet that was supposed to dominate the skies with its advanced avionics and high-speed capabilities, is on our bad weapons list. By now you can probably notice a commonality between all the failing Russian-made weapons we mention. They're the embodiment of the popular "when you order it online versus when it arrives" meme. With this in mind, let's see what the Su-34 promised to do and what it actually did in Ukraine. The Sukhoi Su-34, also known by its NATO reporting name Fullback, was envisioned as a groundbreaking asset in Russia's air arsenal. Developed as a successor to the Su-24, this jet was designed to meet the demands of modern aerial combat with impressive specifications. These include a maximum speed of Mach 1.8 powered by 2 Saturn AL-31 FM1 turbofan engines, a combat radius of approximately 683 miles, a maximum range of up to 2,500 miles. This long-range strike asset was also said to feature a state-of-the-art glass cockpit with color multifunction displays, advanced multi-mode phased array radar capable of terrain following, and comprehensive electronic countermeasures. Its radar system was designed to detect and track multiple targets, enhancing its effectiveness in both air-to-air and air-to-ground engagements. For these engagements, the Su-34 could rely on over 17,600 pounds of ordnance, including the R-77 and R-73 air-to-air missiles, and precision-guided munitions such as the Kh-55, Kh-59, and Kh-31. Additionally, the jet is equipped with a 30mm GSH-301 cannon with 180 rounds for close-range engagements. And what did all these impressive specifications amount to? To over 35 out of 140 of them by Ukrainian air defenses. That's 25% of all the jets that were supposed to wreak havoc across the Ukrainian conflict zone. 8 of them were downed over the course of 10 days in 2024 alone, dealing a massive blow to the Russian aerospace forces. It almost seems that the only success the Su-34 jets have had is dropping the devastating glide bombs. Other than that, Russian forces have struggled to find a particularly impactful way to use this fighter bomber, thus failing to establish undisputable air superiority or destroy the Ukrainian ground-based air defense systems standing in their way. So what was supposed to be a game-changing asset in Russia's military arsenal turned out to be a major disappointment, a $36 million disappointment no less. On the Ukrainian side, it's the other way around. Relatively cheap weapons that no one expected much from have proven to be surprisingly effective, That's why Ukrainian FPV drones, worth between $300 and $500 each, have earned their spot among the best weapons used in Ukraine. And here's everything you need to know about them. The FPV, first-person view drone, was once considered an insurgent tool, largely associated with makeshift and unconventional warfare. Initially used by extremist groups in conflict zones like Syria, its role was limited to dropping small grenades and achieving modest impacts. However, this dramatically changed once the war in Ukraine started. The Ukrainian forces, known for their resourcefulness and innovative tactics, quickly recognized the potential of these drones beyond their traditional applications. With a price tag of between $300 and $500, the FPV drones offered a cost-effective alternative to the more sophisticated and expensive unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, the Ukrainian military previously relied on. Believe it or not, these inexpensive drones even managed to overshadow some of those high-tech drones. For example, the highly coveted Turkish-designed Bayraktar TB2 drones, widely believed to be one of the best UAVs in the world, proved to be rather vulnerable and inefficient against advanced air defenses. Despite its initial media acclaim for precision strikes and video-recorded kills, the TB2's operational lifespan in Ukraine was notably short, with at least 24 of the 40 to 50 units delivered being destroyed in combat. And when you consider that a single TB2 drone costs reportedly around $5 million, it becomes obvious why the FPV drone, costing a negligible fraction of that, has become an unsung hero in Ukraine. This device has proven one thing loud and clear: high cost and hype doesn't always equate to battlefield success, a lesson the Russians are learning over and over again in Ukraine. The FPV drones can carry full-size rocket-propelled grenades and other simple explosives, which make them a crucial tool for disrupting enemy positions and damaging high-value targets. However, the biggest tactical advantage of this UAV lies in its maneuverability and precision. Unlike larger, more expensive drones, FPV drones are small and agile and thus capable of executing precision strikes. These tiny wonders can flow right through a narrow opening or directly into an enemy position, delivering explosives with remarkable accuracy. Due to their low cost, the Ukrainian forces don't shy away from employing FPV drones in high-risk scenarios, which has allowed them to take out some rather unexpected equipment. For instance, FPV kamikaze drones caused more than two-thirds of Russia's tank losses in the first few months of 2024, outperforming heavy hitters like artillery and guided missiles in this regard. Talk about a small but mighty game-changer. Speaking of tanks, one might assume that Russia has the upper hand in this department, given that it's fielded some of the world's most advanced armored vehicles such as the T-34, which basically served as the prototype for all subsequent tanks. And even if you take the quality out of the equation, the sheer number of tanks Russia possesses, 14,777 at the beginning of 2024, according to the Global Firepower Index, would seem to guarantee dominance on the battlefield. But again, there are no guarantees in warfare. And that's why Russia, a previously undisputed leader in tanks, has lost 8,640 of these vehicles since the invasion of Ukraine started, according to the September 10, 2024 report by the General Staff of Ukraine's Armed Forces. Among them, there are at least 150 T-90s, which Russia's President Vladimir Putin has touted as the pinnacle of Russia's tank technology and the best tank in the entire world. But as the war in Ukraine has shown, this is nothing but another overblown claim from the Kremlin propaganda machine. In reality, the supposed world's finest tank has experienced quite a dramatic and public failure in Ukraine. This especially applies to the T-90M model, a heavily upgraded version of the T-90. This variant first appeared in 2017, showcasing a modernized turret design, a new advanced fire control system called Kalina, a new Irbis-K gunner's sight, and 4 video cameras with a 360-degree view of the environment and an upgraded 2A46M5 gun. However, all these improvements turned out to be largely superficial once the tank was actually put to the test in Ukraine. While the 125mm main cannon firing more powerful shells and the upgraded upper section brought noticeable improvements, the chassis and armor largely retained the design of the older T-72 tanks. This means that from the waist down, the T-90M is almost the same as any of the other Cold War-era models that don't stand a chance against modern anti-tank tactics. What's worse, even seemingly modest threats, like the 25mm Bushmaster cannons mounted on the Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, have successfully managed to outperform this supposedly advanced tank. And as mentioned, even relatively light attacks from inexpensive drones have done some serious damage to the tank's advanced explosive reactive armor. Although to be fair, the T-90's inherent vulnerabilities aren't the only reason why these tanks turned out to be one of the worst weapons in Ukraine. You also have to consider the fact that most of Russia's elite tank crews have been lost in the early stages of the invasion. So at this point, Russia is relying on crews with almost no experience to perform complex battlefield maneuvers. Given that the current Russian tank crews can't even operate one tank successfully, it shouldn't be surprising that vital warfare tactics, such as combined arms operations, are also out of the question. Instead of employing tactics that maximize the tank's potential, such as mutual support between multiple vehicles, Russian tanks often operate individually or in uncoordinated groups, making them easy targets for the Ukrainians. Russian tank crews lack the necessary experience and training to utilize their tanks effectively in combined arms operations. But then again, the troops aren't the ones to blame for such failures. The system, which cares little for the lives of its soldiers and prioritizes quantity over quality, is the culprit. Instead of taking 2 years to truly master how to fight in a modern tank, most of these crews have been thrust into battle after mere days. This combination of vulnerable design and inadequate crew proficiency has rendered the T-90M a far cry from the unstoppable force it was once envisioned to be. A force that can now be taken out by a glorified battlefield taxi, and the next weapon on our list, the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. For what this vehicle has done for Ukraine in the Russo-Ukrainian War, it undoubtedly deserves the title of one of the best weapons used in the conflict. One of the key strengths of the Bradley lies in its armament. Equipped with a 25mm Bushmaster chain gun, the Bradley's main weapon might not seem impressive compared to the heavy firepower of a T-90's 125mm cannon. However, the Bushmaster's high rate of fire and armor-piercing capabilities make it effective even against enemy tanks, especially when this vehicle is operated by an experienced soldier. That's precisely how 2 Bradleys managed to outmaneuver and disable a T-90M tank in a dramatic showdown just north of Avdiivka. The 2 vehicles managed to pull off this remarkable feat by targeting the tank's vulnerable areas rather than its heavily armored hull. Thanks to the Bradley's superior mobility and fire control systems, the vehicle was able to evade fire and continue its assault on these sensitive areas, eventually leading to the T-90M spinning out of control. The best part? The Ukrainian commander behind this tactic has learned it from a video game, by his own admission. That's the fierce resourcefulness we've already talked about. After the 2 Bradleys successfully neutralized the T-90M, the Ukrainians used a trusty drone to finish it off and make sure the tank was completely scrapped. For anyone familiar with the history of the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle, a showdown against Soviet-designed tanks shouldn't come as a surprise. The Bradley fought these tanks during the Gulf War too, emerging equally successful. Take Operation Desert Storm as an example. During this operation, Russia was Iraq's main arm dealer, which explains why Saddam Hussein's Iraqi army was using Soviet tanks. In the opposite corner, the coalition led by the US had about 1,700 Bradleys, which were actually taking part in their first ever combat deployment. In what's been dubbed as the last great tank battle of the 20th century, the Battle of 73 Easting, hundreds of Bradleys and roughly 1,000 US-made Abrams tanks faced off against Saddam's elite National Guard units in their Soviet T-72 tanks. In one of the opening salvos of the battle alone, 2 Bradleys managed to take out as many as 5 T-72s in a matter of minutes with their anti-tank launchers. By the end of the battle, only 1 Bradley was lost, while over 160 Iraqi tanks and dozens of armored vehicles were decimated by these fighting vehicles and the Abrams tanks. Over the course of the entire Operation Desert Storm, only 20 Bradleys were lost, with as many as 17 destroyed by friendly fire. Another 12 vehicles were damaged, with 9 of them destroyed by enemy fire. These figures speak volumes about the Bradley's effectiveness in armored combat, no matter the era or the opposition. The same can't be said for Russia's BMP infantry fighting vehicles, which have historically struggled to match the effectiveness and survivability of their Western counterparts. The war in Ukraine is no different, which is why these fighting vehicles can only lead Russia straight to a monumental loss. To understand just how poorly these vehicles have performed in Ukraine, all you need to know is that Russia lost 18 BMP-1 infantry fighting vehicles in a single day in July of 2023, mostly in southern Ukraine. That's almost as many vehicles as the US-led coalition lost during Operation Desert Storm, which lasted for 43 days. The 18 BMP-1 infantry fighting vehicles were mostly taken out by Ukrainian artillery and rockets, buried mines, and explosive-laden drones, which exploded these vehicles from the inside. In most cases, these 13-ton 3-crew vehicles that can fit 11 infantry troops inside were total write-offs. Now you might wonder why the BMP-1s were even deployed, given that they're over 60 years old and thus vulnerable in modern combat. Well, the answer is simple. These fighting vehicles were all the Russians could spare. The Russian forces initially went to war with 400 active BMP-3s, 2,800 BMP-2s, and 600 BMP-1s. After about 1,000 of the newer models got wrecked in the first 12 months of the conflict, the Kremlin had no choice but to send in the older ones. This was made possible by massive military stockpiles of surplus BMP-1s and BMP-2s containing 7,200 and 1,400 of these vehicles respectively. But for Russia, more IFVs just means more weapons to lose, so the tally is now 16,925 lost armored fighting vehicles since the invasion first started. The next weapon on our list, one fit only for victors, suffers almost no losses, it inflicts them. The weapon in question is the Snipex Alligator rifle. The Snipex Alligator is proving to be one of the most lethal weapons in Ukraine's ongoing conflict, all thanks to its extraordinary power, range, and anti-materiel capabilities. This massive sniper rifle, weighing nearly 55 pounds and measuring an imposing 6 feet 6 inches in length without a silencer, isn't your typical stealthy sniper's weapon. The rifle is designed for long-range precision strikes on vehicles and equipment rather than individual soldiers. Another thing that sets the Snipex Alligator apart is the 14.5 by 114mm caliber round, a bullet originally developed for Soviet heavy machine guns. This massive round packs an incredible punch, capable of taking out targets at distances well beyond the range of standard sniper rifles. In fact, the Alligator's effective range is 1.25 miles, but Ukrainian snipers have reportedly hit targets even further. In one instance, a sniper recorded a kill at 1.68 miles, the second longest sniper kill in history at the time. Due to its immense size and weight, the Alligator must be operated by a two-person team, a sniper and a spotter. Though this rings true for traditional snipers as well, they don't have the added duty of lugging a massive weapon around while trying to remain unnoticed. Of course, this raises questions about the practicality of the Alligator. But remember, the rifle's primary purpose isn't to target enemy personnel, requiring additional stealth. It's to absolutely destroy armored vehicles, radar installations, parked aircraft, and even airborne helicopters. With 30,000 joules of muzzle energy, the Alligator's power rivals even 50 caliber machine guns and proves effective against a wide array of battlefield targets, including sensor systems and other critical vehicle components. The Alligator can also penetrate the armor of Russian BTR troop transports and lightly armored vehicles with ease, rendering it invaluable on the Ukrainian battlefield. However, just because the Alligator isn't primarily intended to be used on troops doesn't mean it can't be. In fact, the Alligator has been used with deadly effectiveness in the hands of Ukrainian snipers in these scenarios too, especially with Ghost, leader of the Ghost of Bakhmut unit. This mysterious sniper took part in the covert mission aiming to make the Russian forces' occupation of areas like Bakhmut nearly unbearable, with reports indicating that his unit alone was responsible for the deaths of over 500 Russian soldiers by October 2023, without suffering any sniper casualties themselves. The Alligator was one of the weapons this unit used to bring terror right back to the Russian forces. And there you have it, a list of weapons winning and losing the war in Ukraine. Now, someone might echo General George Smith Patton Jr.'s sentiment and claim that wars may be fought with weapons, but they are won by men. But even if we consider the soldier to be the greatest weapon in modern combat, Russia would just have another worst weapon on the list. Why? Because since the invasion started, Russia has lost over 630,000 troops. Although this staggering figure includes both fatalities and wounded personnel, it underscores the massive human cost of the war. It also showcases just how poorly prepared, ill-equipped, and mismanaged Russia's forces have truly been in the face of Ukraine's fierce resistance, which is undoubtedly one of the weapons leading Ukraine to victory. But what do you think? Do you agree with our list? Or is there any weapon you'd like to remove or add? Perhaps the Ka-52 Alligator attack helicopter for the biggest disappointment, or the HIMARS for the most game-changing weapon? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Now go and check out Analyzing the Power of Western Tanks in Ukraine, or click this other video instead.